Good morning. My name is William Wilson of William Wilson Chartered Accountants in Belfast. I'm working in conjunction with Full Circle Management Solutions on the 100-day consolidation programme, focusing specifically on short and medium-term cash flow issues. Our practice works with owner-managed small and medium-sized companies, professional partnerships and sole traders. We cover all financial reporting requirements to include year-end financials, audit, non-audit assignments, corporate tax, personal tax, and any other of the demands of our client base. We would always advise our clients the importance of cash flow, and now more than ever during the current crisis. Businesses have different trading patterns, and each business will be affected in different ways by the coronavirus. From a cash flow perspective, I believe businesses will fall into a number of categories. There'll be businesses that have built up historic cash flow reserves, and they will utilize those over the next few months in order to survive and come back out the other side when the world returns to normality. Other businesses, having been in a relatively strong trading position at the start, by the end of this process, I believe they will be in a little bit more debt than what they originally were on the way in. And that might take the form of payments due to suppliers, payments due to the inland revenue, and payments due to the bank, or a measure of all three. Sadly, I believe that some business won't survive. The key to survival in this particular instance, I believe, is efficient management of cash flow. With this in mind, I prepared a simple cash flow spreadsheet. Every business is different. However, this model can be bent and flexed to suit any business, regardless of size and scale. Before we look at the cash flow, there are a number of specific ingredients to consider. What's your current bank position? What's in the bank today on your statement? Do you have an overdraft facility? And then from those two pieces of information, we'll look at potentially the flows in and out of the bank. The money flowing into your bank account is to a certain degree out of your control, and that will be made up of a number of sources. Customer payments, dependent upon eligibility, grants receivable. Depending on eligibility, again, it'll be the Inland Revenue HMRC furlough contribution, where essentially the government will give you the monies that have to be paid straight out again to your staff. So they are essentially, that particular example and illustration is money in and out, but I think it's very important to include that into your cash flow from a timing perspective, that you may have a payment to make to your staff by the end of April. However, what if the money doesn't come in from the government until early May? Another potential introduction of monies into the business would be from a personal perspective. If this is the right thing for the individual and their business, on the basis they are confident they have a sustainable business out the other side of the coronavirus. One of the last options will be bank support, where folk will enter into an arrangement with the bank for one of the coronavirus business interruption loans. Again, that comes down to eligibility, historic trading, financial projections, and the number of moving parts. In terms of, that's monies in. In terms of monies out, to a certain degree, these are under the control of the individual controlling the cash flow in terms of what's key to the survival of the business, what may be deemed as a luxury at the moment, and payments that you can defer. However, with the deferral, I would urge you that means deferring it to another day, where you're going to have a liability out the other side that you'll have to make those payments at some point. And the other would be potentially a payment holiday, where you approach a lender and ask for the payment to be stopped and added to the end of your loan or payment agreement. So let's say, for illustration, with the payment holiday, let's say you have a hire purchase agreement or a loan that's due to be repaid in full by 31 December 2020. By virtue of taking a holiday in the months of April, May, and June, what you'll do is roll those three payments, and rather than your loan or agreement ending on 31 December 20, it would actually end 31 March 21. The key with the cash flow model is it essentially replicates your bank statement. So in inputting all of the payments out, which you know with conviction, and potentially payments in, you can project how your bank will look over the next 12 weeks. If you understand all of the payments going out, that is essentially then the catalyst for the amount of money you need to come in to cover those payments. Okay, so we'll have a look at the cash flow model by way of illustration. Okay, so very simply, cash flow set up in an Excel document, and I tend to find that if it's a weekly cash flow for 3 months broken over weekly blocks for the next 12 weeks. So let's take, for example, Monday the 20th of April. If we were to take what's the money in your bank account at that particular point in time. So let's say, for illustration, the opening balance was £10,000. And we consider, okay, for the next 5 days, what payments do we expect to go out of the bank account and potentially come in? So in this instance, we're not expecting customer payments. There may be a grant dependent upon eligibility of £10,000 and salary support, let's say, of £8,000 through the furlough scheme. Okay, then start to look at payments out. Okay, and everybody's bank statement will be different. The quantum of the figures will be different, and the spread of the types of payments will be different. For example, we could build into these lines, supplier payments, for example. For a trading business, you may wish to add a number of lines and build in some of your key suppliers that you need to pay in order to consolidate your working relationship for once we're all out the other side of this. So there'll be specific payments that specific businesses need to make in order to survive out the other side and retain their trading position. So when we look down the bank statement, you'll be able to track, okay, electricity, gas, oil, potentially not, salaries noted. That money essentially comes in and comes straight out again. But the illustration is, let's say that that money doesn't come in for another week. Look at the impact it has on the cash position here on the opening balance. The message there is you can't spend it before you receive it unless you have funds to cover the payments. So when we look down, pension, rent, insurance, let's make that a little bit higher, a little bit more realistic. Your motor payment, fuel, maintenance. Let's say with the motor maintenance, car breaks down, God forbid, in a number of weeks. Postage, stationery, accountancy, repairs and maintenance, cleaning, bank charges. Let's say with, for example, take the Inland Revenue. Let's say you have a pay-as-you-earn payment of £2,000 every month. Okay, let's say the VAT, you take the benefit of waiving your VAT liability, that outside the other side of the coronavirus pandemic, there's the option that the revenue, you can defer your VAT payments as long as they are cleared in full by 31 March 21. Now, I would add that that will be dependent upon payment history with the Inland Revenue. It'll relate to VAT accrued in that particular period. It won't relate to VAT already unpaid. Circumstances would be very different for every business, and it would add an element of caution to that. Corporation tax payment. Let's say there's a particular corporation tax payment needs paid here. Okay, when we look at different types of debt, there may be hire purchase commitments for equipment, a bank loan that you've taken out some time ago in order to cover an office move, an investment in particular products, a website, for example. So let's say you had a £500 a month hire purchase payment and a bank loan. So you'll see as I fill in the cash flow, to keep it as simple as possible, money's in or a plus, money's out or a minus. Very simple. Let's say in addition, you may have a mortgage on a property that you're working from, so that would counteract the rent. But just by way of illustration, folk that are paying a mortgage payment as opposed to rent, in that instance, you would remove your 1,000 and let's say your mortgage payment here takes you to the same place. Finally, directors of limited companies may pay themselves by way of minimum salary and dividend. And with the dividend, there need to be a provision built in for ongoing dividend payments. Let's say that they are £2,500 a month. And what I would suggest that once you've run your cash flow, the week is easy to clear. I would build in contingency for the next few weeks. For example, let's say you have a problem in the office that, God forbid, your server breaks down, whatever that happens to be. It's nice to have a buffer in your cash flow for something that comes out of the woodwork, because clearly these things tend to happen. So it's interesting when you look at that cash flow from week 1 all the way through to week 12, how the cash flow potentially will look. If we do nothing and the only monies that come in are the furlough salary support, which goes straight out, and you get the grant of £10,000, you could find yourself in a position that by this week, number 9, start of June, you're in an overdraft of 16k. You know, by the 5th week, an overdraft of 6,000. Let's say that in the short term, you were able to approach your bank for a short-term overdraft until we're out the other side of the coronavirus. Again, that's deferred debt that will need to be paid off at a future point in time. Let's see how that would look. Build in £5,000 of an overdraft facility that the bank affords you. Okay, we still have a problem in that the bank availability, you're overdrawn. So what we need to do in that instance, you need to consider, you know, if you run out of cash, that's certainly that it could have detrimental, irrecoverable consequences for your business. So you need to make the choices around the payments that you may wish to defer, take a holiday. Let's say, for argument's sake, in this instance, you decide, I'm going to defer my pay-as-you-earn. Going to defer pay-as-you-earn. I'm going to defer the bank loan. So just for clarity, we'll defer these payments. And you may decide to take a reduction in the amount of money that you draw from the business yourself. So what does that do? Immediately when you look at the cash flow, you actually get back in line and it keeps you within the facility and the ability to continue to make the crucial payments. A specific illustration would be, let's say, for example, you have insurance payment that you make. That would be, from my perspective, personally, for me, my opinion would be that would be a non-negotiable. Let's say during the pandemic, God forbid you have a break-in, there's water damage, a fire. With certainty, you would want to have sufficient insurance cover in place to cover that type of eventuality. The other, for example, again, from a personal perspective, I might consider that your pension payment, you might say, okay, look, the pension payment, it's not ideal. We're in unprecedented circumstances. I'm going to cancel my my pension payment and pick that up again once we're back to normal trading. All of these small cuts at different levels will make the difference to conserve your cash, that you're in a strong position at the other side. I would urge that over and above the weekly cash flow, I think at a period when it is quieter from a trading perspective, I think it's essential that folk bring their financial statements up to date as much as possible, that you have a strong set of financials and you have a longer term financial projection where you look at, okay, dependent upon a pessimistic and optimistic outlook, if trading looks like this over the next 12 to 18 months post coronavirus, can I survive? Can I pay all of the deferred payments? The more optimistic, here's how my business may or may not look. That will give you comfort, first and foremost, and most importantly, that will give you comfort and confidence around how your business will look. And in addition to that, from the bank's perspective, should you decide to go to the bank, it will give the bank comfort and confidence that you have up-to-date, robust trading figures, a realistic financial projection to prove that you have the trading business and the ability to repay to get back to where you would have been had the coronavirus not occurred. So I'll just stop the share. So essentially that's the run through on the cash flow. I'll share the Excel document. Again, that I would urge you to add lines and take away lines to suit your own business, but the key would be to ensure that you replicate your bank statement and project out for the next 12 weeks. This is a model that can be used not only for businesses, also folk may use this as a handy cash flow tool to manage their own homes in terms of reduction in salary payments coming in, even for some of your staff perhaps, that with the uncertainty for folk, a reduction in their salary to 80%, that some of the changes that they can make at home from, for example, a mortgage payment perhaps, a car payment deferral, just to give folk, I think it's a very useful tool for folk to use that. But I hope that's been useful. Should you have any queries, I'd be delighted to take the opportunity for you to contact me. Thank you very much. Take care.